Okay. So when did you first get involved in PWE?
Actually, I went to the very first show. I went to just to check out the show, and I really can't just sit there and watch a show, to be honest with you. So I ran to the back and asked if I could manage someone.
Okay. Now, who was that first core group that was there?
I know that we had. To be honest with you, I was kind of half drunk, but we had Josh Rain, Louis Matos was there, and Michael O'Toole, I believe. And Noel was there, and I believe he wrestled one match and then just sat in the crowd heckling for the rest of the show. And I want to say Torture, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Not too long into the existence of PWE, the kind of the FXE Orlando crew came in. How did they affect the show itself?
I don't think they affected the show really in any way, except just adding more of a roster. A lot of the way the booking was done was listening to everybody's idea. Which is where the problem came, because they pretty much said yes to everything, and that's where they had a lot of problems.
Okay. Early in PWE's existence, who were the first couple guys that kind of tried to drive the train?
Say Louis Matos. I know he was a flag bearer for the company. Martin Marvel was probably the biggest supporter. I mean, it was his company, but he was probably the biggest supporter of the company. He really believed in it. As much as he and I disagreed on a lot of things, I can't take away from his passion about the company.
Okay. Why don't we bring him in? We got him right here.
Cool.
Okay, so wait, make sure it's recording. Early in the history of PWE, you had a core roster that you started with.
Right.
How did you come up with that group?
It's basically a bunch of friends of mine that didn't get enough work, in my opinion. Like, guys that are really underrated. Some guys that George will argue are overrated. But guys that I felt deserved a shot that didn't get shots because, and quite honest, the state's ran by a few strong-arming promoters. And I just felt like, Zephyr Hills has like a nice batch of like blood that's ran through for wrestling because Joe Bob's was integral to a lot of the stars you see today. There was a period where it really was the only thing you heard about was New School Wrestling or IPW, and that was about the gist of the shows you heard about.
Okay. Of that core group, who really their career escalated, and who didn't you hear from 2 months later?
Josh Rain, I would say, was probably the most. I think he gained the most from being in Eclipse.
I agree on that.
I definitely Josh Rain gained the most. I would say that the person that I expected more out of that kind of plateaued was Louis Matos. We can argue all day about this, George. The person who I thought was going to get his shine back and really kind of explode back out on the scene again and died a horrible puttering out death was actually Kid Lethal. So I would say like there was a lot of guys. I think Michael O'Toole benefited quite well from it. I think he actually developed into, in my opinion, a even better worker than what he was when he first came in, because at first there was a lot of people who were naysayers on his part, and I believe George was one of them, and I believe George now actually enjoys watching like work.
Yeah, he sucked.
Does he?
Well, not now.
Well,
But he did.
yeah.
Okay. Now, I've already asked George this one. It seemed like, from what people have said so far, that there was a second wave of people who were called the FXE group.
Yeah.
Or the Orlando group.
Well,
how did they affect the product?
What actually happened was Aaron Epic had told us about some guys that he'd wanted to come in and work. Simon Says, Biff, Bobby Fonta are the most, obviously, the most well-known. Mike Cruz came in around that time. We had guys like James Posh, the American Marvel, and I don't think Jesse Neal actually came up, but he was going to be involved. And then they had like the kids from the Bubba Ray Dudley School, Leva, and Betsy Ruth and all them. They all came through for a small little cycle. And we had that nice core there. But actually before that, and let George have a little bit of a forum on this, was that ACW came in and kind of offered some support. We had Eddie come in and do a little angle to help George get over as the evil character that he was trying to portray against Mitchell. And we had we had Big Jose come in, and we had who else? We had Mandrake come in and make Mandrake. Honestly, I think made a really big impact, and he actually saved our butts because we were getting ready to discard the Ultraviolent title because we had no one who really could carry that title the way it needed to be carried. And I think him and Eric Cooper's feud for that was one of the better. Actually, was probably the best Ultraviolent feud we had going on.
Okay. I'm going to ask George this one. Can you tell me a little bit about that Ultraviolent title and Mark Mandrake and just the impact of the Ultraviolent title?
It was a fun division. It really was. I got to step in the ring a little bit with Eddie Brock in that handicap match type deal. That was just confusing. But Mandrake was actually very proud of that title. I know, towards the end of his run there, he wasn't very happy. However, he did enjoy having that title. I think the Ultraviolent title was different. It wasn't just your regular hardcore. It was a little different. It's the one positive thing I could say about PWE was that it was different.
Who were the backstage leaders that you saw?
Typically, it was supposed to be originally when we started. It was me and Lewis had come to the agreement that I was gonna, it was my show. I did all the legwork. I brought Lewis in because he was a really close friend of mine, and I was like, I could use some help, this, that, and the other. When George was around, George did help out. We did butt heads a lot towards the end because I had some decisions that I felt were going to make the company better. And I won't take away from what George's intentions were good for what he felt the boys deserved. And I don't think the boys didn't deserve anything less, but my intentions were, and I think I heard him say when I walked in, my passion for the company was I wanted the company to grow. And I was trying to make decisions that I felt would make the company grow, while George was, like I said, in good intentions, was looking out for the boys. It just was, it was more or less misunderstandings, miscommunications a lot. When it comes to who was running things, it was supposed to be really me and Lewis, although sometimes that weight would shift more on the shoulders of one or the other, just depending on that. So typically I would say it was that. There were several options, people who I guess you could say locker room leaders. Leon Scott later on. I would actually say Mandrake and George, during their tenure there, was probably more of that. Aaron Epic was a pretty good locker room leader. Simon Says played locker room leader a few times. It would bounce around a lot. Just kind of played into that role. So.
Okay. George, can you tell us kind of what your thoughts were for the backstage leadership? Who was the backstage leader or leaders, and how did that develop during your time in PWE?
Well, like you said, we had Jerry, right? Jerry or somebody. What's his name?
Lethal?
No, the other dude.
Mitch Caldwell?
No.
Mitchell?
No.
Seth?
No.
I'm gonna Leon? I don't know what you're talking
Dude with
about.
the long blonde hair.
Adam.
That guy. Adam.
Let's start
Ethan
over.
Wolf.
Yes, Ethan Wolf. He helped out a lot.
I totally forgot about Ethan. Honestly.
I think there was way too many hands in the cookie jar, to be honest with you.
Yes.
There was plenty of times where they would tell me something in the back, and then I get to the front, and he told me to do something different, and everybody was butting heads, and I got the blame for it. Did I not? I got blamed for it. But, what the hell? It happened.
There was a lot of miscommunication during that time. A lot of things switched up towards the end. Just me finally coming back I took a hiatus, and I came back, and I just didn't do it anymore. And I basically was like, I'm in charge, you don't like it, leave. And a lot of people left. A lot of people got mad at me about it. I got a lot of heat for it, but there was a lot of, like I said, there was a lot of things. Typically, if you were to ask who was in charge of PWE, it would be me, hands down. However, there were several people who, like George said, were sneaking in the kitchen and getting into the cookie jar. And it happened a lot. So.
I don't want to mention any names, but Mr. Legend was one of them.